Our worst fears have come to pass. The One Ring has revealed itself, and as the Fellowship prepares for its perilous journey to Mount Doom, the shadow of Sauron stretches forth to reclaim it. Aragorn and I hoped the Rangers alone could hold back the Witch King's advance, and that Angmar's strength had not yet grown too great. We were wrong.
Hi y'all, I'm Nomad. I just want to kind of make a video on like what the hell happened to Lord of the Rings Online. This is a game that I played when it initially launched, and I stuck with it for quite a few years, and just kind of like what happened on the ground level from my perspective of why this game isn't doing so well now, maybe why I can't really return to it like I used to, and just kind of like my feelings towards the game now. So put this on your second monitor. This is going to be a very chill, not very edited video. It's going to be more of like the human side. If you want more like a documentary style, Nerd Slayer, I'll put his channel right over there. He's already, I think, covered this game before, and he goes into a much more like documentary, history style, analytical analysis of this game. And this is going to be more like somebody who was there and kind of what happened to them and their story with the game. So right off the rip, I love Lord of the Rings Online. I think it's got a lot of great things going on. Also, I'm gonna be drinking while we're doing this. So if you got some alcohol, maybe crack open one, because we're going down memory lane. Yep, in the background here in the gameplay, I'm just gonna be doing skirmishes. I'll talk about skirmishes eventually in the video, because it's definitely a highlight I want to bring up about why this game was special back in the day, because I feel like it was doing a lot of things right that a lot of like MMOs say like WoW like they weren't doing. So this game was really trying to be something, I guess, different, and I think they had a lot going for them. So this game released back in 2007. I joined shortly after that, I think in December. I got my first job, and I was a huge Warcraft fan. So like I was really into like Warcraft 3, Warcraft 2, and I played the crap out of that game. So when I got a job and enough money, I just bought this and subscribed to this instead, even though I was like, what am I doing? And that's because initially looking at this game compared to WoW, I wouldn't say these graphics were like realistic, but just like the fidelity with the game. I prefer this over the cartoonish style that WoW had going on at the time. Like I like the way like my character scales with like the world, like everything kind of has like a more believable, like immersive like feel to it. Like the doors feel like, doors that people would go into, the towns feel like, towns people would live in. And so just like the fidelity and like the overall graphical like art style, I really vibe with, and I still think it holds up today. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. This looks good and fine. So yeah, instead of playing WoW and subscribing to WoW, I stuck with this, and I quickly became in love with it. Just the world, obviously big fan of the movies when they came out, and so this was basically like my first like full-fledged MMO. And so when you're getting into a first MMO, you want to be really unique. So what did I make? I made a human captain. Huge fan of paladins, again, back in Warcraft 3. So I went real original with the human here. And to this day, this is that same character that I'm playing now. I stuck with the human captain. I think this is a great class. It's a lot of fun. It was back then it was like a true melee support class. So it didn't do like a ton of DPS, but it buffed the team and it put out a lot of healing. Now since then they've completely changed a lot of it, so really not going to go into that. Just kind of go on like what class I picked and why. Again, human. Not really too much to that. So continuing on, yeah, I played the crap out of this game, and I leveled basically straight to 50 as like quick as I could. And the time that I got to 50, Mines of Moria was releasing, and that was in 2008, I think fall. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, November 2008. So I hit 50, I think like a month or two before Mines of Moria came out. So I completely skipped Angmar. I didn't really experience any of that. I knew it was like a tougher zone, but I had joined a fellowship, and we were all like meeting to go to through Mines of Moria like together. And going through that expansion, maybe it's nostalgia, maybe it's just because it was like my first, but that expansion was so good, so unique, just completely underground, very unique biomes, And it was the first time I kind of got into that late game, I'd say grind. So I did like a lot of grand stairs. I got into like how you get like pre-raid, pre-raid armor and stuff. And like I had a shit ton of fun because at the time there weren't a lot of like captains, put it that way. So like kind of made me feel special because captains weren't really the best at solo adventuring per se, but like in the team setting, they really, really thrived. Now after Moria, I mean, I had a great time in Moria, got into the grind. I did a little bit of raiding. I never killed the Watcher when it was current content. I eventually had to go back with another guild a couple expansions later to finally beat it. We just went through it all. So, but I did experience most of the Mines of Moria. And then Mirkwood came out, and that's probably the time where I played the most because the skirmishes, they added more skirmishes. Those were really popping off. And then the daily system where you go right outside of the Ring Breaks Lair, the Necromancer's Gate, Gate. This was all super fun. I'm a big fan of skirmishes. So that one, last time I'm gonna say it before I go into the systems. So yeah, made it through Mirkwood, made it through the Rise of Isengard, and then around Riders of Rohan is when I personally kind of just fell off the game completely. Riders of Rohan, the combat, the mounted combat, it was a cool idea, but in execution, that wasn't it, Chief. Yep, so going back over briefly, probably redo a lot of this, but started in Angmar, but quickly went into Mines of Moria. Mines of Moria, fantastic expansion, a lot of fun. Mines of Moria carried over to Siege of Mirkwood, played a lot of Siege of Mirkwood, and then Rise of Isengard, played a lot of that, and then it wasn't until Riders of Rohan where like I think a lot of the cracks started to show in the game, and so that's when I fell off. But just like general impressions of the game. Again, I think the graphical fidelity, the art style that they picked, it's pretty timeless. I feel like it doesn't look bad. Like you can tell what everything is. So like I actually really dig this art style. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the numbers look good. I like the UI. It's all centered around, the ring and like a Middle Earth style. So that's all really good. And like sound design, I think again, fine. The music, beautiful. And what really takes the cake with the graphics is the landscapes. The landscapes in this game are still, I would consider, some of the best in like any game. And that's because they never introduced like something like flying. So like everything's designed and open because you're only going to be on a ground mount. So they pick out these like vistas and they just make everything look like lush and almost like realistic, like not realistic, but like just full and foliage. It's just the environmental team, the developers of this are some of the best. Again, the maps in this game look amazing. Now what you do inside those maps, not so great, but the way that it looks in the landscapes, again, top notch. A real reason to keep like returning to this game is just like how vast and big the world is. And again, minimum loading screens. Well, you can literally, I think you can go from Bree to Mordor. You can simply walk in. It's okay, put the meme in.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
So that's like a real gold star on Lord of the Rings. And then we get the combat. Let's talk about combat and like gameplay. So the combat in Lotro here, when it is responsive, now it's not always responsive, but I feel like it's basically, I would call it the bare minimum of what an MMORPG needs to provide. Like it's not as snappy as WoW. There's the like animations aren't like the most crisp, but I do think it gets the job done, and there's a certain novelty to it that, again, it's probably nostalgia, but like I really dig. And so again, gameplay is good. Now let's talk about the systems. So the systems are like, how many classes are there? There's a nice list of classes here, especially at launch. Everything felt very unique compared to like, it felt very Middle Earth. Okay, you had captains, you had champions, minstrels, lore masters, the hunters. Again, they really had a diverse. They hit all like the staples for when this game came out. And eventually had Runekeeper came out, which was like the second healer, which everybody was begging for because maybe not everybody like wanting to play a bard. So again, another gold star there, very standard, perfect. And then they had instances where basically like were dungeons that people would run. Those were okay, I guess. Just like again, just very standard. I don't think combat for group settings was like the best as far as like telegraphs and like what you need to do. Is very, very old school. Again, I don't really remember too much about it or like really think fondly or like bad about like the instances, and I'm talking about like the dungeon ones, because then we move on to skirmishes, which is what I'm doing now. I can't talk highly enough about skirmishes. Skirmishes are probably some of the best ideas if they just would have stuck with and really developed this system. I feel like this could have gone a long way. I feel like a lot of games could use something like this. It's just like these short missions where you do very simple task, but you get your own skirmish soldier. So basically as a captain, I have like 2 allies with me. And like, it just feels good to like have those numbers, you know? It just feels good to like have that scale. So like if they would have kept doing skirmishes, man, I feel like this game could have gone a lot deeper. I'm a big fan of skirmishes. I wish they would have kept developing this system instead of just like, instead of just coming back to it every now and then kind of forgetting about it and then trying to come back to it. They didn't really try to like innovate, I would say, once like this blueprint was out, which this blueprint, again, very good, but you do need to like keep it fresh if, you know, you want to keep a system alive. So right now, skirmishes, some of the best. The raids, I can't speak too much to raiding. I did the most raiding in Rise of Isengard, and that was fine. I look fondly back on that. We had just, you know, we had a lot of characters. We had a guy who had who would drink White Russians all the time. His name was Shoal, and he was just always kind of like, he's the one guy I remember because it was me and my my one good buddy that we met in this game, and we kind of just like jumped from fellowship to fellowship. He was a champion, I was a captain. When we would do like instances and skirmishes together, I would always, you know, he'd always be my battle brother. So like we had like a lot of role play going on. And he was also an elf. He was an elf champion. I was a human captain, and yeah, we were like battle brothers. It was a good like kinship. That's what they're called. Before I was calling them fellowships, kinships. Kinships are the guilds in this game. So I've corrected myself now. So raids, yeah. At the time that I did them, they were fine. They're good. Again, I feel like I wasn't the biggest raider. I have never been a big raider. I don't like the weekly clear system and having to rely on like, you know, however many people to not fuck up. But I'm not gonna talk negatively about it. I'm not gonna overly praise it. It's just like, it's just raids to me. I'm not the biggest raid guy, so apologize for that. Okay, and then the next system that I want to talk about, PvMP. So player versus monsters. Again, I think this is another banger of an idea that was super unique to Lord of the Rings Online. So you go into one zone. This is basically an open world. Think of it like, so like if you're thinking like Guild Wars 2, like a world versus world, or in ESO, Cyrodiil, just a giant open map where you have like places to capture. There is some questing, and so you have the free people of Middle Earth, the Freeps, and these are everybody's characters with all their gear, all their levels that, you know, you sink hundreds, if not thousands of hours into. And then you can instantly create on the other side monsters. So we're talking like wargs, orcs, uruk-hai, like all the, you know, the dark forces. And so they even have their own progression. It's a little watered down, obviously not as complex as the Freeps, but at first they start off like really weak, but then, you know, the more you progress with them, they get like super strong to even like, they'll crush like Freeps who were not like properly geared. And so that zone, it was the Etten Moors. Lost so many hours in the Etten Moors. My server, we had Budhorn. I think he's our commander. He's a hunter. I'm pretty sure he probably still plays. This dude was an absolute fucking legend in organizing the Freeps. And when the servers were working, this large scale combat, it was so much fun. It was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like this in an MMO like this, or like an online game where you had like so many people and just the scale of it all. It was amazing. Unfortunately though, they kind of let this like fall to the wayside too, and it's kind of a running theme with Lotro. It's just like a lot of the really, really good systems, not necessarily innovated on or updated or, you know, or like refreshed. So we'll get to the negatives later. Let's keep on things that this game does that I remember pretty fondly. Another one is, so with the landscape came like deeds, where like you go around, you find like landmarks, you kill certain enemy type, and this would unlock things. This was a fun system. Very grindy. I wish they made it like account wide instead, but I can't tell me how many times I had to kill Hillman or one of the like human, the race of man, like one of their like trait lines Did that a lot. Don't look back fondly on it because it was like literally like just grind out like 300 of these fuckers. That wasn't a great experience, but you know, at least it was there. So it did have some grindiness. This game also, I remember housing. I had a house for a little bit, just a small one. Didn't get too invested into it, but glad it was there. I've checked up on it like every now and then. Like it's cool that what people can do with it and like what they've added like with Gondor and stuff. And I wish I had a house still, I guess, but like it's just nice to have like that roleplay element. And yeah, no, it's like back in 2007. I don't know if it launched with housing, but the fact that they added it like pretty quickly, if not at launch, like after launch, like it really did seem like this development team had like a lot of like really talented developers or like people who knew like the MMO genre and like really how to bring like Middle Earth to life. And then let's move on to the story. So this game did something that is really praised nowadays in Final Fantasy 14, and that's the MSQ, main story quest. This game has a main story quest. It has the book quest where it leads you along a connected story like throughout like Middle Earth, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Like I'm a person who, yeah, sure, I like to be able to just go off in whatever direction and kind of like fuck around, but like I appreciate like a narrative to follow and to be invested into and like given a reason to like care about like what my character's doing, what's going on in the world, and like seeing reoccurring NPCs and you know what they're doing. And then again, that's another drawback of like why I didn't really gravitate to like WoW, because I learned like there really was no story. There was one, but like you really had to go looking for it, and it wasn't like in your face. And again, I definitely like, I really like that. I like to be like basically handheld through that stuff. So that's just my play style. So the MSQ, the book quest in this game, a lot of fun. I was a big fan of the Mirkwood one. We all know where you're escorting, I can't remember the orc's name, around Mirkwood, and you have these elves, and like he's slowly just like escaping, and like your companions are all dying, and it turns into a real shit show. And then you get like the 300 meme where he like slow motion cuts them with an axe. I'd pull it up, but again, this is very like not very heavily edited video. Again, it's just very chill, just kind of like a reminisce of the game, just for prosperity's sake, I guess. I don't know. And kind of like the last, like I'd say gold mark star, whatever you want to call it for this game, is the immersion and RP value. So like landscapes are already beautiful. The maps look like they're real places. Like it's really just like Middle Earth. Like this is a great representation of Middle Earth. Plenty of like towns, outposts, houses. Like it feels really realized and lived in. And so along with that is the role play. And I think that's probably what carried me the most in this game, because I was an RPer. And just like the RP potential in this game is great. I remember so many times hanging out in the Prancing Pony here, and every now and then somebody would put together a Defense of the Prancing Pony kind of like community RP event, and we all get in there and summon our skirmish soldiers, and it'd just be like this big battle, and it'd just be like so, I'm gonna use the word epic, but just like something to do for the community that like we created like our own content. And I feel like this game really facilitated like the RP community, and it still does. And you can play your own music. People held like festivals and plays, and it's something that I really value. It's why like my current MMO, and one I've been with like a very long time now, is Final Fantasy 14, because they kind of like have that same value of fully realized world, a lot of care given to the writing and the world building, and then giving the players the tools to basically make their own content, and having a lot of like RP and like immersive value. So like with all those good things, a lot of great things, again, skirmishes, immersion, RP, landscapes, why did I eventually like abandon this game? Why did I fall off? Well, a few reasons. I think the biggest one, let's start with the biggest one. Biggest one I think was going free to play, and essentially adding in the in-game store that was grossly monetized, and then basically chopped up content with like quest packs and stuff. Now there was a, you know, if you were a subscriber, I think you got most, if all of it, for free, or you got like, you know, your monthly allowance of turbine points to spend on that, or you got it included. I don't know, there was times where I had a sub and I didn't have a sub. I would like go back and forth, but just like piecemealing the game like that, I feel like it just separated the community. Every time they did something like that, you know, it was hard to keep track of like okay, where's like the end game crowd? Because that was kind of a problem with this game, is they didn't do a lot to catch players up or like put a system in so like everybody was involved together. So what do I mean by that? So like the largest groups of players you have your beginner players or people just starting out, your low levels. This is usually the most populated with most of the most, which is where you see the most people. And then you have, you know, the people leveling, and then you have the end game crowd. Well, every time they would release like new content, expansions, increase level cap, gear cap, whatever. That pool of like end game characters, you take a little sliver at it and they'd go forward, and then there's the characters left behind. And so there's just like this gap was getting larger and larger between new players and the end game. And then it was a very thin amount of population like in between. So once you got outside like the starting zone, you really just wouldn't see anybody anymore. So it really lost that like MMO value. And here's a great example of like how to keep like those people together is scaling instance content. And like, so, okay. They did add eventually in like a group finder, like an automatic dungeon finder, but this thing never took off. I don't think it worked half the time. I don't know. It just never took off. But I really wish they would have added like a duty roulette again from Final Fantasy 14, where they just have a list of activities that you just click the buttons and you just join people, and it is for everybody. And so like the higher level characters would be like scaled down to like your content. And this would just keep like this would have like just kept like the player base feeling like cool and like active. And like there are still players, and let me just get this out of the way too. There's still players playing this game. It's still got very dedicated communities. It's just like, why isn't it as large as it was when it, you know, first initially launched? And I think it has to do with, again, like not keeping up to date with their own systems and kind of innovating and keeping them fresh throughout the game's like life cycle. I feel like they added this content and then they kind of left it out to dry, and then maybe they're trying to bring it back, but that by then it was almost like too late. And the next thing that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way about this game was the legendary item system. This was a system that basically, it was just like this super grind, and it was like overly tedious. There were like 13,000 different materials. I don't know. It was just so complicated for like no reason. And it totally made getting other weapons in the world just completely like irrelevant. Like it took like a whole part of like the RPG element like out just to have like one weapon that you kept, and you kept leveling it over and over again. And eventually you get rid of it because its item cap didn't make sense anymore. Like the legendary item system in this game was just a complete another mess. And I wouldn't say it's a reason why I left the game, but it's a system that I looked at. I'm like, what the fuck is all this shit? And eventually, yeah, I think I just stopped like caring, and like I just completely like, ignored it, because I was just like, I don't see the point of this thing anymore. Or like, I don't want to do this grind. I don't want to go through this hoop. I don't want to jump through these hoops every time they have an update or do something where they just add like this huge grind for like, I don't even know for who. Because again, I wasn't a huge raider, so like stuff really didn't apply to me, and I don't know why. I don't know what players like really like were asking for this. So that was like another crack that started to show. And then there were like the huge content lulls. The content lulls in this game were like extremely bad. It feels like this game had like top-notch like writers and landscape designers, but then when it came to like game systems and like kind of like that treadmill development, that team didn't there was no like vision or goal for that team. It just seemed very sporadic, like they didn't know what they were doing as far as like content cadence and like releasing stuff, because they just really never got like a schedule. Because on top of not having a schedule, by the way, second drink, is like the game stability would just like fall apart for so long. This game would just run like ass, either the graphics not being optimized or like the settings not being optimized. So like I'm getting frame drops now. I have a 4070 Super. It's like, I don't think I should be losing frames on a game like this. Could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a tech wizard, but I feel like it should be running smoother than. I don't feel like I should be getting like frame drops. And on top of that, like latency, just like the lag for this game. Like I feel like it just like spikes for like extended periods of time, and like you rubber band, and like it's just like an unplayable state. Surprisingly though, during the entire time I'm playing right now, it's actually felt pretty good. So that may be something they finally fixed, but at the time when I really stopped playing, I feel like it was like a huge issue. So like with all those things combined, yeah, I just eventually drifted away from the game. Every time I'd come back, I did come back for like Gondor. Again, that whole series was like a mess because they kept you at like what level 100 or like 105, but then they kept releasing like zones and stuff, and they just like, what did they want you to do? Just keep leveling your legendary weapon? That was all a mess. I just kept up with the book quest, and I said okay. And then after that, I did go into like Mordor and stuff, but I didn't get very far in there. I think I made it to like the second zone just because it really just wasn't an enjoyable experience. Getting up to going to the Black Gate and stuff, that was all done actually like pretty well. I did enjoy that, but then yeah, going actually to Mordor, I was like, I really didn't feel it. I don't want to say it was too tough, but it's just like I just like kept hitting walls with my gear because you needed like some stupid zone resistance, and then they had like the alliance system, and it's just like they kept adding stuff when they didn't really need to. Again, I feel like they really just needed to iterate on what they had, which is like skirmishes, really good. PvMP. Why did they like abandon that for a time? I know they tried like Osgiliath, right? But like that never took off either. And so every time I check in the game, it just kind of seems like everything is kind of like all over the place. I don't really know what to do anymore. Again, and it's just like, and then starting new characters is just like, starting a new character is a very daunting experience in this game, just because it does take so long to level. It's a very enjoyable experience the first couple times through, but I've just done so many times like I don't really feel like doing it again, just to kind of end up like where I am now. I do think this game, if anybody's ever interested or like looking for a recommendation for like an old school MMORPG that really is like immersive and great landscapes and leveling, I would recommend this game. I do think that first time level through or just experience the leveling for as long as you can, you know, it interests you, I think it is worth it, because I do think they did that really well. And then, holy shit, I never brought up epic battles. Oh man, what a colossal, just weird system that was just a huge disappointment. We were all excited for Helm's Deep. I remember they had a post saying like, oh yeah, I'm sitting out here looking over like, you know, the thousands of Uruk-hai on the Helm's Deep wall, and it's like all like the little 2D pixel like animations and stuff. Like this game could not pull off that fantasy, and I don't know why they even tried. I feel like with the technical limitations, they could have come up with like a satisfying like content with like skirmish and stuff. Like obviously, I feel like realistically, we know having like that many NPCs, that much like going on the screen, one, it's gonna catch your computer on fire probably, and two, it's probably gonna run like ass, and then three, you're probably not gonna feel like you're having a huge impact just because like there's a shit ton of stuff going on. It might be fun like once, but it's just like not a great thing in you know, in actual reality when it comes to like MMOs, is like having those like grand epic battles. Like they're good, they're fun one time. Like Guild Wars 2, that's what they kind of sells, like these giant open world battles and stuff with these giant monsters or like large events, and like those are I think they do it the best. But even then, like running those like multiple times, you kind of just get going to the motions, and it's just like it's whatever. Because then you eventually like stop feeling like your impact, so you're just kind of going with the wave, and it's kind of like branded content. And I don't think that's something that's like necessarily good for a game. I don't know. It's just like I take it or leave it basically. So yeah, I think that's technically like the end of my rant, the end of this video. Kind of like, you know, why I like this game, why I fell off. You know, I continue to return to it every now and then just to kind of like check out what's going on, get some of the nostalgic feels going on. I wish they would have, you know, kept up with this game. They tried to do things like, you know, to copy WoW with like a classic server, but like it wasn't a classic server at all. And it's just like they seem like they're just always like, it seems like they're always just trying to like get money out of me. And like I feel like they broke that illusion, that fourth wall, like really heavily. Like there's other games that like mask it a little bit better, but it just felt like with Turbine, and I guess with Standing Stone Games now, like they just are really trying to like just nickel and dime you at every turn. They give you like the bare minimum content. Sometimes it's not even finished. There's not really like a release cadence. You don't really know what's going on with this game, and it kind of feels like it's just kind of like limping along, which is really sad because I feel like this game had so much potential, and potentially still does, but it would need like a hard reset and kind of almost like a, I don't even know what to call it. What do you call it? Like Shadows of Angmar, like plus like system, like where you kind of like reset everything. So yeah, thanks for letting me for listening to me ramble. Yeah, this was like the first MMO that like got like properly like addicted to, and like I spent all my money on, and money well spent, let me tell you. I didn't even have my buffs up. I didn't have a battle brother. Listen, don't look at my gameplay. I was just kind of rambling. That's why I put it like on 3 levels lower than what I am, so I could just kind of like talk. And yeah, my next big addiction was actually like Guild Wars 1. So I'll probably do a similar format video where I talk about that game, what I liked about it, the highs and lows, kind of like the same gameplay, story, systems, all that, and then kind of like why I fell off from it and move on from there. So yeah, guys, let me know what, like your experience with like Lord of the Rings, like when you fell off, kind of like what you loved about the game, what kind of like rubbed you the wrong way, and ultimately like why you left, or maybe you didn't leave, maybe you're still here, and like what keeps you in this game, you know, what keeps you going other than like just being in Middle Earth and stuff. You know, I am interested because like I feel like I missed this game, I missed the community. This was like the first, you know, MMO that like I really like got invested into, and like just that like magic of like an MMO and just the vast like open world, and you know that sort of like nostalgia. It's like I love talking about this game and like the good old days. So like I'd love to know like what people find now, and what do they think about like the latest expansion, and like how that's going. I kind of heard like mixed things and not great things initially, so I was like, ooh, that's rough. Kind of like the same old. So yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for letting me ramble, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.